Take Mom's old photo album and leave the ranch. Now. My daughter's urgent text made my hands shake as I stood in my Texas citrus grove. I had no idea why she was panicking, until I found what my late wife had hidden for decades. My son and his new wife thought I was just a confused old man they could easily manipulate, but they never expected what I would discover in that album. They thought they knew everything about our family's past. They were dead wrong. What happened next changed all our lives forever. Before I tell you what I discovered in that album, let me know in the comments where you're watching this from, and if you've ever received a warning text that changed your life. The late afternoon heat hung thick over my citrus grove in South Texas. I'd been working these 300 acres for over 40 years, but the Rio Grande Valley humidity still made my shirt stick to my back. I was adjusting the irrigation valve when my phone buzzed. A text from Novely. My daughter never interrupted my work unless something was seriously wrong. Dad, take Mom's old photo album and leave the ranch. Now. I stared at those words until they blurred. Novely was a federal judge down in Brownsville, the kind of woman who weighed every word before she spoke it. She didn't use capital letters. She didn't panic. And she sure as hell didn't tell her old man to abandon the land that had been in our family for decades. My hands started shaking, and it wasn't from the heat. The photo album. I knew exactly which one she meant. That thick, leather-bound book Carolyn used to keep on her desk in the farmhouse. My wife had been gone 2 years now, taken by cancer that ate through her faster than drought through summer grass. Even when she was sick, even when the pain medication made her forget my name some days, she'd clutch that album like it held the secrets of the universe. "It's just family pictures, Dylan," she'd say whenever I asked about it, but her eyes would dart away when she said it the same way they did when she was hiding Christmas presents. I dropped the irrigation wrench right there in the dirt and ran toward the house. At 70, I wasn't as fast as I used to be during my police days, but fear has a way of putting springs in old legs. Carolyn's desk sat in the corner of our bedroom, exactly where she'd left it. I'd barely touched anything in there since she passed. The album was right where it always was, next to her jewelry box and our wedding photo. The thing was heavier than I remembered, bound in dark brown leather that had softened with age. I opened it expecting family snapshots, but something felt wrong. The binding was too thick, the pages too stiff. I ran my fingers along the inside cover and felt it. A slight ridge where there shouldn't have been one. My police training kicked in. 30 years of investigating had taught me to recognize when something was hidden in plain sight. I pressed along the edge until I heard a soft click, and a section of the album's backing came loose. Inside was a manila envelope yellowed with age. My hands trembled as I pulled out documents that made my blood run cold. Birth certificates, property deeds, legal papers that turned everything I thought I knew about my wife upside down. The sound of gravel crunching in our driveway made me freeze. Then came the footsteps on our wooden porch, slow and deliberate. Someone was coming up the porch steps. My hands shook as I stuffed the papers back into their hiding place. The documents scattered across Carolyn's desk like pieces of a puzzle I never knew existed. My eyes darted between the papers, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, while my ears stayed tuned for whoever was approaching the house. The birth certificate hit me first. Carolyn Marie Caldwell, born April 15, 1955. Father Henry Caldwell, Mother Maria Santos Caldwell. Caldwell, not Martinez like she'd always told me. Not the humble farming family from Hidalgo County that I'd met at our wedding. Henry Caldwell, I knew that name. Every person in South Texas knew that name. The man had owned half the Rio Grande Valley back in the 70s, buying up ranch land and citrus groves like he was collecting baseball cards. My wife had been Henry Caldwell's daughter, and she'd never said a word. The property deed made even less sense. Dated March 20th, 1975, just 2 months before Carolyn and I got married. Henry James Caldwell hereby transfers ownership of 300 acres of citrus-producing land, including all buildings and water rights, to Carolyn Marie Caldwell, for the sum of $1 and other valuable consideration. $1 for land that had to be worth millions even back then. Underneath the deed was a letter handwritten on expensive paper that had yellowed with age. The ink was faded but still readable. "My dearest daughter, this land is your birthright, though I could never give you my name publicly. Your mother and I, circumstances were complicated. But you deserve security, and this grove will provide for you and any family you might have. Use it well. All my love, Henry." The front door creaked open, and I heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Logan's boots the same heavy tread he'd had since he was 15 and started helping me with the grove work. But something was different about his walk today, hesitant like he was carrying bad news. I folded the letter quickly and slipped it back into the album's hidden compartment. The birth certificate indeed went in after it, my fingers working fast despite the tremor that had started in my hands. 30 years of police work had taught me to secure evidence first, ask questions later. Logan appeared in the doorway, his face pale under his work tan. At 38, my son looked more like Carolyn every year. The same dark eyes, the same way of chewing his lower lip when he was worried. Right now, he looked like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. "Dad," he started, then stopped. His eyes went to the photo album in my hands, then back to my face. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maybe I had. The ghost of a wife who'd kept secrets that could have changed everything. "I'm fine, son. Just looking through some old pictures." The lie came easier than it should have. "What's got you looking like someone stole your favorite horse?" Logan shifted his weight from one foot to the other the way he used to when he was a kid who'd broken something valuable. "Dad, I'm sorry about this, but Melissa's outside with a lawyer. They say they're here to help you, but I'm not so sure anymore." The walk from our bedroom to the front porch felt like a death march. Logan stayed beside me, his jaw tight, with the kind of tension I'd seen in suspects who knew they were about to confess to something they'd regret. The photo album felt heavy in my hands, like it was made of lead instead of leather and secrets. Melissa stood on our porch like she owned the place, which maybe she thought she did. My daughter-in-law had always been beautiful in that sharp, calculated way that made men stupid and women suspicious. Today she wore a business suit that probably cost more than most folks around here made in a month. Beside her stood a woman I'd never seen before, tall, gray-haired, carrying a briefcase that screamed, "Expensive lawyer." "Dylan," Melissa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. This is Gloria Manning, an estate attorney from McAllen. She specializes in helping families navigate complex property situations." Gloria Manning stepped forward with the confidence of someone who'd been winning courtroom battles since before I'd started carrying a badge. "Mr. Reynolds, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Your family has asked me to review your current living situation and property management capabilities." The words hit me like a sucker punch. "Property management capabilities." "Dad," Logan started, his voice strained. "We're just concerned. You forgot to pay the property taxes twice last year. Last week you left the irrigation system running all night in Section 4. The water bill was astronomical." Each word felt like a nail in my coffin. Small mistakes, the kind any man my age might make, but lined up like evidence in a criminal case. I'd been a cop long enough to recognize when someone was building a case against me. "Your family is concerned about your ability to manage this valuable property." Gloria continued pulling papers from her briefcase. "These are competency evaluation forms. Standard procedure when there are questions about an elderly person's capacity to handle significant assets." Elderly person, the word stung worse than I expected. Melissa moved closer, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone she used when she wanted something. "Dylan, we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to protect you. There are also questions about the property's legal ownership that need to be resolved." My blood turned to ice water. "What kind of questions?" "Complex inheritance issues," Gloria said smoothly. "Sometimes property transfers from previous generations weren't properly documented. We need to ensure everything is legally sound before any decisions are made about the ranch's future." I clutched the album tighter against my chest. They knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough to make them dangerous. "I'm not signing anything," I said, backing toward the porch steps. "This is my land, has been for 40 years. "Dad, please." Logan reached for me, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. Melissa had gotten to him, poisoned him against his own father with her careful words and manufactured concern. "Mr. Reynolds," Gloria's voice sharpened, "refusing to cooperate will only make this more difficult for everyone involved." That's when my old police training kicked in. Create a distraction, find an exit, move fast before they can react. I dropped the album deliberately, and when all three of them looked down, I bolted. My truck sat in the driveway like salvation on 4 wheels. At 70, I wasn't as fast as I used to be, but desperation has a way of making old legs remember how to run. I heard Logan shouting behind me, heard Melissa's heels clicking on the porch steps, but I made it to the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life, and I gunned it down our dirt driveway gravel, spraying behind me like buckshot. In my rearview mirror, I saw Melissa on her phone, her face twisted with fury. I had to reach Novalee before they could stop me. The back roads of South Texas unfolded in front of me like a map I'd memorized during 30 years of police work. Every shortcut, every farm-to-market road, they were all filed away in my head like evidence in a cold case. Right now, that knowledge was keeping me ahead of whatever Melissa had planned. My truck bounced over a cattle guard as I turned onto County Road 1015. The speedometer climbed past 70, which was probably suicide on a road designed for tractors. But I'd rather take my chances with a ditch than with Gloria Manning's legal trap. My phone rang through the truck's speakers. Novalee's name flashed on the dashboard. "Dad, where are you?" "Logan just called, said you ran off during some kind of meeting. They're trying to have me declared incompetent," I said, taking a hard right onto another back road. Melissa brought a lawyer to the house. They had papers, Novalee, official documents about my mental fitness. There was a pause, then my daughter's voice turned sharp with prosecutorial anger. "Dad, I've been investigating Melissa since Logan married her. She used to work for a development company called Lone Star Properties. They specialize in acquiring rural land for commercial projects." The pieces clicked together like bullets sliding into a magazine. She married Logan for the ranch. That's what I'm thinking. What did they want you to sign? I checked my rearview mirror. No headlights yet, but that didn't mean I was safe. Competency evaluation forms. They said there were questions about the property's legal ownership. I paused, thinking about Carolyn's hidden documents. "Novalee, I found something today. Papers your mother kept hidden. I think there's more to our family history than we knew." "What kind of papers?" "The kind that might explain why someone would want to steal our land." I took another turn onto a dirt road between citrus groves. The familiar smell of orange blossoms drifted through my windows. "Dad, listen carefully. Don't go home tonight. Meet me at the courthouse in Brownsville. I have a secure office there, and we can examine whatever you found." The courthouse was 40 miles away, but I knew how to get there without using major highways. "I'll be there in an hour." "And Dad, bring those papers. If Melissa is working with a development company and there are questions about our land ownership, we might be dealing with something bigger than a gold-digging daughter-in-law." I ended the call and pressed harder on the accelerator. The sun was setting behind me, painting the Texas sky in shades that reminded me of the grapefruit groves I'd spent my life protecting. Carolyn had loved these sunsets, used to sit on our porch with her mysterious album watching the light fade over our trees. Why had she kept Henry Caldwell's secret? What was she protecting me from? By the time I reached the courthouse parking lot, full darkness had settled over the Rio Grande Valley. Novalee's car was already there, and she met me at the side entrance with a key card and the grim expression of someone who'd spent the afternoon uncovering bad news. "Dad," she said as we walked toward the elevator, "I did some more digging after we talked. Melissa's connections run deeper than I thought." She looked at the photo album under my arm. "Whatever's in there, it's big enough that some very powerful people want it buried." The elevator doors closed behind us, and I realized that Novalee's expression when she saw the documents would tell me this was much bigger than simple family drama. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of her secure office, Novalee spread Carolyn's hidden documents across her desk like evidence in a federal case. Her reading glasses caught the light as she studied each paper with methodical precision. "This birth certificate is legitimate," she said, running her finger along the official seal. "And this property deed. Dad, Henry Caldwell, wasn't just some local landowner. He was one of the biggest land barons in South Texas during the 50s and 70s. I leaned forward. So Carolyn really was his daughter. "Looks that way. And he transferred 300 acres of prime citrus land to her for practically nothing." Novalee's fingers flew across her keyboard. "But here's where it gets interesting. Someone filed a competing property claim 3 weeks ago. A man named Nick Caldwell. The name hit me like a cold wind. Related to Henry? Has to be. And Nick Caldwell works for Gulf Coast Energy Solutions. They've been buying up Rio Grande Valley farmland for 2 years, paying way over market value." She turned her screen toward me. "Every property they've acquired sits on top of the Eagle Ford Shale Formation. The dots connected with sickening clarity. Oil and gas. Exactly. Your 300 acres aren't just valuable for citrus farming. They're sitting on potentially millions of dollars worth of mineral rights." She pulled up another document. "And here's the kicker. Melissa Warren worked for Gulf Coast Energy's parent company before she married Logan. She was their land acquisition specialist." My hands clenched into fists. She's been planning this since before the wedding. It gets worse. Nick Caldwell has filed similar claims against 3 other elderly landowners in the past 18 months. Always the same pattern. Questions about mental competency disputed inheritance family members who suddenly develop concerns about property management. And the families just gave up their land. 2 of them did, settled out of court for a fraction of what their property was worth. The 3rd family fought back, and Nick withdrew his claim rather than face a jury trial. I walked to the window, looking out at the lights of Brownsville. Somewhere out there, Melissa was probably planning their next move. So this isn't about family legacy. It's about turning our grove into a fracking operation. That's exactly what it is. They're using Henry Caldwell's descendants to challenge the transfer he made to Carolyn. Novaly gathered the documents. The question is, can we prove that Henry's transfer was legal and voluntary, that he had the right to give the land to Carolyn? How do we do that? We need someone who knew Henry Caldwell personally, someone who can testify about his relationship with Carolyn, about his state of mind when he made the transfer. She rubbed her eyes. Someone who was there. I thought about Henry's letter to Carolyn, the careful handwriting that spoke of love and regret. That was almost 50 years ago. Most people from that time are dead. Most, but not all. She was already searching through online records. Henry Caldwell was a prominent businessman. He would have had employees, associates, maybe family friends who are still alive. The computer screen flickered with search results, and Novaly's face lit up with the expression she used to get when she found key evidence in a difficult case. We need someone who can testify about Henry Caldwell's relationship with Carolyn. Someone who knows the truth about why he gave her this land. It took us 4 hours of digging through online records and nursing home databases the next morning before we found what we needed. Edith Crawford, age 89. Henry Caldwell's executive secretary from 1960 to 1980. The trail led to Sunset Manor in San Antonio, which meant a 3-hour drive through Texas Hill Country. Novaly and I left Brownsville around noon, the photo album secured between us. I couldn't shake the feeling we were racing against time. We found Edith in a wheelchair by the window, a tiny woman with silver hair and eyes sharp as broken glass. Despite her frail body, there was something formidable about her, like she'd spent her life keeping secrets. "Mrs. Crawford," I said, pulling up a chair. "My name is Dylan Reynolds. I was married to Carolyn Caldwell." The change in her expression was immediate. She reached out with a trembling hand to touch my arm. Carolyn, beautiful girl, Henry's greatest joy and his deepest regret. Novaly leaned forward. "We're hoping you can help us understand the relationship between Henry and Carolyn. People are challenging her inheritance, claiming the land transfer wasn't legitimate." Edith's eyes flashed with anger. "Nonsense. I typed those transfer documents myself. Henry was completely sound of mind and deeply in love with that girl." "In love?" I asked. "Fatherly love, protective love." Her voice grew stronger. "Henry had an affair with Carolyn's mother, Susan Mitchell, back in 1954. Beautiful woman, worked as a bookkeeper in McAllen. When she got pregnant, Henry wanted to do right by her, but his wife threatened to take everything in a divorce. The pieces were finally coming together. So he couldn't publicly acknowledge Carolyn, couldn't risk destroying Susan's reputation. This was 1955. Mr. Reynolds. An unmarried woman with a married man's baby would have been socially ruined." Edith adjusted her glasses. "When Susan died in a car accident in 1960, Henry was devastated. He arranged for Carolyn to be raised by Susan's sister, but he never stopped watching over her. And the land transfer, Henry waited until Carolyn was married and settled. He said she deserved security, deserved to know someone had loved her mother enough to provide for their child." Edith's smile was sad but proud. "And I remember the day he signed those papers. March 20th, 1975. He said it was the first time in 20 years he'd done something purely good." Novaly was taking notes. "Would you be willing to testify to this in court?" "Of course, dear. Henry Caldwell was complicated, but he was honest in business. That land transfer was as legitimate as any I ever processed." She paused, studying our faces. "But there's something else you should know, something I never told anyone while Henry was alive." My pulse quickened. "What is it?" Edith started to speak. Then her eyes suddenly widened as she looked past me toward the window. The color drained from her face, and her hand gripped my arm with surprising strength. Edith's weathered hands moved with surprising speed for someone her age. Without another word, she wheeled herself to a small safe tucked behind her dresser, her fingers working the combination with the muscle memory of decades. "I kept this for Henry," she whispered, pulling out a manila folder. "He made me promise to guard it with my life." She handed me a document that looked official even in the dim nursing home light. Henry Caldwell's last will and testament dated November 15th, 1978. My hands trembled as I read the key passage. "I hereby confirm that the property transfer made to Carolyn Marie Caldwell on March 20th, 1975 was executed with full legal authority and sound mind. No other member of the Caldwell family by blood or marriage shall have any claim to said property or its proceeds." Henry made me witness this, Edith said, her voice urgent but steady. "He wanted to protect Carolyn's rights forever. Said he'd failed her mother, but he wouldn't fail her." Novalie was already moving toward the window, peering through the blinds. "Dad, we need to go. Now!" There are 2 cars in the parking lot, and one of them has someone sitting in the driver's seat watching the building. "The back exit," Edith said, pointing toward her door. "Down the hall past the kitchen. It leads to the employee parking area." She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Take that will, Mr. Reynolds. It's the only thing that can stop them." We helped Edith back into her wheelchair, and she pressed a business card into Novalie's hand. "My nephew's number. He's a notary in Austin. If you need someone to verify my signature on Henry's documents, call him." The hallway stretched ahead of us like a gauntlet. Every footstep seemed too loud, every shadow could hide someone waiting to stop us. But we made it to the back exit without seeing another soul. In the employee parking lot, I turned to look back at the building. Through a first-floor window, I could see 2 figures in the lobby, a woman in a business suit and a man in expensive casual clothes. Even from this distance, I recognized Melissa's posture. "They're inside," I told Novalie as we reached her car. "Probably asking the front desk about visitors. How did they find us so fast?" I thought about it as we drove away from Sunset Manor. They've got resources. Private investigators, maybe even people monitoring public records searches. We looked up Edith's information online last night. They could have been tracking the same leads. Novalie merged onto Interstate 35, heading south toward the Rio Grande Valley. "So what's our next move? We have Henry's will, we have Edith's testimony, but they're not going to just give up." I looked down at the will in my hands, at Henry Caldwell's signature declaring Carolyn's rights to the land she'd left me. "We go home, back to the Grove. It's my territory, and I know every inch of those 300 acres. Dad, that's exactly where they'll expect us to go." "Good. Let them come." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Logan's number. It's time my son learned the whole truth about his mother, about our family, about what we're really fighting for. The phone rang twice before Logan answered. "Dad, where are you? Melissa's been looking everywhere." "Son," I interrupted, "meet me at the house in 1 hour. It's time you knew the whole truth about your mother." The sun was setting behind our grapefruit trees when the cars started arriving. First Logan's pickup truck, then Melissa's sleek sedan with Gloria Manning in the passenger seat. Finally, a black SUV that had to belong to Nick Caldwell, expensive, intimidating, the kind of vehicle that screamed money and power. I stood on our front porch, Henry Caldwell's will in my hands, watching my family and enemies gather on the land that 3 generations had called home. Novalie positioned herself near the porch steps, her phone ready to record everything that was about to happen. Logan walked up first, his face a mixture of confusion and dread. "Dad, what's this about? Melissa says you've been acting erratic, making wild accusations." "Your mother wasn't who we thought she was," I said, holding up the will. "And neither is your wife." Nick Caldwell emerged from his SUV like a man who owned the world, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He looked at our modest farmhouse with the kind of disdain reserved for things that stood in the way of progress. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, his voice smooth as oil, "I'm Nick Caldwell. I believe you have something that belongs to my family." I held up Henry's will. This document, dated November 15th, 1978, states clearly that Henry Caldwell confirmed Carolyn's inheritance. It also states that no other member of the Caldwell family has any claim to this property. Nick's composure cracked. That old man was manipulated by a gold digger who got pregnant to trap him. My grandfather would never have given away prime real estate to some bastard child. "Your grandfather loved Carolyn," I said. "This will proves it." Witness notarized filed with the county clerk. Gloria Manning stepped forward with her briefcase. "Mr. Reynolds, a will written 26 years after the initial transfer raises questions about—" About fraud, Novalee interrupted, pulling out her own documents, which is exactly what you and your clients are committing. I have evidence that Nick Caldwell has filed similar false claims against 3 other elderly landowners. I also have proof that Melissa Warren worked for Gulf Coast Energy before marrying my brother specifically to identify valuable properties for acquisition. Melissa's mask finally slipped. Logan, we're trying to secure our future. Your father is sitting on land worth millions in development rights, and he's too stubborn to see it. Development rights. Logan looked between his wife and me. What are you talking about? Nick stepped closer, his voice taking on a harder edge. This land sits on top of the Eagle Ford Shale Formation. The mineral rights alone could be worth $50 million. Your father's standing in the way of progress, boy. I'm standing in the way of thieves, I said. That's when Melissa broke completely. Fine. Yes, I married you to get access to this property, Logan. Your family was never going to develop it properly. You just let it sit here growing fruit, while energy companies pay fortunes for drilling rights. Logan stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You married me for the land? I married you because you were the key to millions of dollars that your stubborn father was too blind to claim. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of approaching sirens. Novalee had been busy during our drive from San Antonio, and the FBI takes energy consortium fraud very seriously. As the federal agents placed handcuffs on Melissa and Nick, Logan walked over to where I stood. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear for the first time in months. Dad, I'm sorry, I should have trusted you. I put my arm around my son's shoulders as we watched the police cars drive away with Melissa and Nick Caldwell. The legal battle was over, but healing our family would take time. 6 months later, the December sun cast long shadows across our citrus grove as the 3 of us worked side by side, filling crates with ruby-red grapefruit that would soon find their way to markets across Texas. The familiar rhythm of harvest season felt different this year, not just because Logan was here helping, instead of Melissa questioning every decision, but because we were finally working as a real family. Logan had filed for divorce the day after Melissa's arrest. She'd received a 5-year federal sentence for conspiracy to commit fraud, while Nick Caldwell got 7 years and a hefty fine that effectively shut down Gulf Coast Energy's land acquisition program in South Texas. The judge had been particularly harsh about their targeting of elderly property owners. Dad, Section 12 is ready for picking, Logan called out, wiping sweat from his forehead. At 38, my son had thrown himself into learning sustainable farming practices with the same intensity he'd once reserved for his construction business. The organic certification inspector said we should have approval by spring. Novalee looked up from the financial reports spread across a folding table we'd set up under the shade of our oldest grapefruit tree. The numbers look good, really good. We're not just surviving without Melissa's development plans, we're thriving. She'd taken a partial leave from her federal judgeship to help run the family business, bringing the same analytical skills that had made her a respected jurist to our agricultural operations. Watching her negotiate contracts with distributors was like watching an artist at work. That evening, as the sun painted our grove in shades of gold and orange, we held a small memorial service for Carolyn. I'd finally found the courage to tell her complete story, not just the loving wife and mother we'd known, but Henry Caldwell's daughter who'd carried a secret her entire adult life to protect the people she loved. Carolyn, I said, standing beside the new memorial stone we'd placed under her favorite tree, you protected Henry's secret to shield our family. Your sacrifice preserved our legacy. I looked at Logan and Novalee, both of them understanding for the first time the weight their mother had carried. You gave us this land through love, not deception, through sacrifice, not greed. Logan stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. Mom, I'm sorry I doubted Dad. I'm sorry I let someone poison me against the man who raised me with your values. He looked at me. Dad, I promise I'll never let anyone come between our family again. Son love makes us vulnerable to manipulation, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. But family, real family, makes us stronger than any scheme or conspiracy. As we walked back toward the farmhouse, Novalee fell into step beside me. Dad, I've been thinking about something Edith said, about Henry doing something purely good when he gave Carolyn this land. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do with what we've inherited. Not just preserve it, but use it to do good. The lights of our farmhouse glowed warm and welcoming ahead of us, and I realized that for the first time since Carolyn's death, our home felt complete again. We'd learned that trust once broken could be rebuilt stronger than before, that secrets kept out of love could become weapons in the wrong hands, but truth shared with courage could heal even the deepest wounds. Family betrayal cuts deepest, but it can also lead to stronger bonds. Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Looking back at everything that happened, I realize I made mistakes that nearly cost me everything I held dear. I trusted too easily, kept secrets when I should have shared truth, and almost let pride destroy the relationships that mattered most. Don't be like me. Don't wait until crisis strikes to have honest conversations with your family. I should have asked Carolyn about that photo album years ago, should have noticed the warning signs in Melissa's behavior, should have trusted my instincts when something felt wrong. God gives us intuition for a reason, and I ignored mine until it was almost too late. The biggest lesson I learned is that family secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, become weapons in the wrong hands. Carolyn thought she was protecting us by hiding Henry Caldwell's story, but that silence nearly destroyed everything she'd worked to preserve. Truth shared in love is always stronger than secrets kept in fear. I've heard countless grandpa stories over the years about families torn apart by greed and deception, but I never thought it would happen to us. This true story taught me that wealth, whether it's land money or mineral rights, brings out both the best and worst in people. God tests us through our blessings as much as our trials, and we have to stay vigilant against those who would exploit our trust. If you're an older person managing family assets, don't assume your children's spouses have pure motives. Ask hard questions. Verify intentions. Protect your legacy before someone tries to steal it. And remember, God helps those who help themselves, but He also expects us to use wisdom alongside faith. These grandpa stories from my generation matter because they're warnings wrapped in true story experiences. Every family faces these challenges eventually, and the ones who survive are those who choose truth over comfort. I'm sharing these grandpa stories because they could save your family from the pain we endured. This true story isn't just entertainment. It's a cautionary tale that could protect your inheritance and your relationships. What family secrets are you carrying that might be better shared? Have you ever felt like someone was manipulating your loved ones against you? Your story could help someone else avoid this pain. Drop a comment below sharing your experience. And if this true story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. God bless, and remember, family is worth fighting for, but only when it's built on truth.